Okay, so as Filipinos, we all have responsibilities to our country, and one of the most important is contributing to the nation's growth through taxation. So taxes play an important role in funding government services, ensuring the proper function of various institutions, and supporting our community. So today, we will take you through the history of taxation in the Philippines from the pre-colonial era to the Spanish colonial period, so to better understand how this practice has evolved and how it continues to shape our society. So here are the topics that we're going to tackle today. First is the Philippine taxation, from pre-colonial to colonial period. Second is the base of Philippine taxation system. Third is the Republic Act 10963 of Tax Reform Acceleration and Inclusion, which is the train law. Fourth is the salient features of the train law. So before we formally start, let me introduce myself. I am Christine Marie Rivera, and today I'm going to tackle about the Philippine taxation. So taxes are mandatory payments made by the individuals to the government. So the government uses this money to provide services like building roads, funding schools, paying for healthcare, and maintaining public safety. So without these taxes, the government would not have the money it needs to operate. So next is the taxation is considered as the lifeblood of the government. So this is why taxes are often called the lifeblood of the government, because they are essential for keeping the government running. It provides the necessary resources for the government to operate and serve the needs of its citizens. So, there are two main ideas or principles that guide how taxes should work. So it is the benefit principle and ability to pay principle. So the first one is the benefit principle. The benefit principle states that those who benefit from public services should pay taxes. This means that individuals contribute in proportion to the services they use or receive. So this principle suggests that those who benefit from public services should be the one paying for them. Basically, the more services you use, the more taxes you should contribute. So the second principle is the ability to pay principle. Ensures that people are taxed based on their financial capacity. So this promotes fairness, no? So this principle advocates for taxing individuals based on their financial capacity, ensuring fairness regardless of the direct benefits they receive. Okay, so now let's move on to the history of taxation. So, during the pre-colonial period, barangays were the basic form of governance, led by the datus. So, during the pre-colonial period, the Philippines did not have a national government. Instead, the land was divided into small communities called barangays, which were led by a chieftain known as dato. So each barangay was independent, and no dato had enough power to unite the islands into one nation. So taxes during the pre-colonial era were known as buwis or handog. So the people in the barangay paid taxes to their dato as a form of protection. So again, these taxes were called buwis or handog. The idea was that the dato would protect the people in return for their contribution. Members of the dato's family were exempted from paying taxes. However, people who failed to pay their taxes could face punishment even during this early period. Also, religion played a significant role in their judicial system. When there was a dispute, the dato served as the main judge, and a group of elders called the Council of Elders acted as a jury. So they often sought divine intervention in making decisions. So society was divided into three classes. It is the Tumawo, Timawa, and Ripon. So I don't know if I pronounced this correctly, so please correct me if I'm wrong. First is the Tumawo. These were people of royal descent, including datus. Next is the Timawa, or the freemen. These were warriors and people who served the dato during wars, hunts, and raids. They could own property, choose their jobs, and have families or slaves. They didn't have to pay taxes. Next is the Oripon, commoners or slaves. So these were the lowest class. They work for the Tumawa and Tumawa, often pay off debts, or as a favor, they were not paid for their work, so they also didn't pay taxes. A priestly class existed to record taxes and historical events, so a special group in society was responsible for recording history and keeping track of the tribute and taxes. Now let's move on to the colonial period. So when the Spanish colonized the Philippines, they introduced the encomienda system. So under this system, certain Spaniards called encomenderos were given the right to manage a specific area and its people. So the encomendero was tasked with religious education as part of their responsibility. So the encomenderos had two main responsibilities. So they could collect taxes called tributes from the people in their assigned area. They were supposed to provide religious instruction to the natives by funding priests who would teach Christianity. So the initial collection of tributes under the encomienda system involved cruelty and abuse. So the encomienda system was supposed to be ethical. So the Spaniards promised that the natives would be taught about Christianity and guided in faith. However, many encomenderos abused their power. So instead of focusing on religious education, they exploited the natives for personal gain by overworking them and imposing excessive taxes. So Father Domingo Salazar wrote to the King of Spain in 1583 condemning the brutal treatment of the natives. So here is the full letter, but we will break them down later on so we can fully understand what does the letter is conveying. So here is the first breakdown. So here many powers fail me. I lack the courage and I can find no words to express to your majesty the misfortunes, injuries, and vexations, the torments and the miseries which the Indians are made to suffer in the collection of tributes. So Father Domingo Salazar is overwhelmed and feels powerless. He struggles to describe how much suffering the natives endure because of the harsh and cruel way tributes are collected. Second breakdown. But if it is true, most Christian king, that the intent of your majesty in sending Spaniards to the island is that God may be known, his faith preached and his holy law received here. So he reminds that the king that the purpose of sending Spaniards to the Philippines was to teach people about God, spread Christianity, and encourage them to live according to Christian values. So this is the third breakdown, and that these Indians by love and good works and expo may be held to the knowledge of God and obedience to your majesty. So the goal was to guide the natives with kindness, good actions, and positive examples so they would willingly follow Christianity and respect the king. Here is the last breakdown. So what law or right permits individual to transgress in this matter by their greed and self-interest, and to do the opposite of that for which your majesty sent them? So Father Salazar questioned why some Spaniards are acting out of selfishness and greed using violence and cruelty, which goes against the king's mission of spreading faith and justice. So that is the meaning of the letter itself. So now, Mr. Renniel Santiago, it's your turn to discuss the next topic.
Good day everyone, I am Renniel Santiago, and today I will be discussing about the key aspect of the reading number 21, which is the instruction of the Spanish king to the Governor General on the collection of tribute, and also the reading number 22, which is the letter from Francisco Ortega to the Viceroy on the collection of the tributes from the natives in 1589. Now let's dive into it. So first, let us talk about the reading number 21, which is the instruction of the Spanish king to the Governor General on the collection of tribute. So first is the disorder in tribute collection. Reports of confusion and exploitation in collecting tributes from the natives. The tribute system during the early Spanish period was plagued by confusion and exploitation. Reports showed that the collection method were disorganized and harmful to natives. Next is tribute value. Fixed at 8 reals payable to coin, gold, or native products. So each tribute was worth 8 reals, which could be paid in coin, gold, or native products. However, the practice was far from fair. Next is the exploitation by encomenderos. Tributes, demands, and scarce items forcing natives to search or buy them. Overchanging, some demanded more than 8 reals, causing great hardship. So here, encomenderos often demanded tributes and items that were scarce, forcing natives to search for or purchase them. This led to overchanging, with some collecting as much as 15 to 30 reals far above from the fixed value. Next is the king's instruction. Ensure the tribute collection as per section 6. Allows a native to choose the form of payment, whether it's coin, gold, or goods. So, to address these abuses, the king instructed the natives must be allowed to choose the form of payment, whether it's coin, gold, or products, and the fairness be upheld in the tribute collection. Next is Francisco Ortega's concern in 1589. Letter to Viceroy highlighted unfair tribute practices and abuses. So in 1589, Francisco Ortega expressed his concern in a letter of Viceroy. He highlighted the unfair tribute practices and the suffering they caused the natives. So in summary, the Spanish king recognized the abuses in the tribute system and sought to impose a fairness by standardizing tribute collection and giving natives the freedom to choose their mode of payment. These attempts shows some concerns for justice, but its effectiveness was limited by the greed of local officials. Now let us talk about the reading number 22, which is the letter from Francisco Ortega to the Viceroy of the collection of tributes from the native in 1589. So, first is the initial contact with the villages. So Spaniards demands tributes immediately through interpreters. No preaching or gift, only the tribute demands. So when the Spaniards arrived at the village, instead of offering gifts or preaching, they demanded tributes. For instance, a group of interpreters might arrive at a small fishing village and order people to immediately pay tribute. These frightened the villagers as they had never been under a king or lord before. Next is the impact on natives. Forced to give up personal items such as a necklace or bracelets. Fear and confusion led many to flee to mountains. So, imagine a fisherman whose only wealth is his fishing net and a bracelet he inherited. He is forced to give up the bracelet as tribute to leaving him with nothing. Next is the violent consequences. If people fled out of fear, Spaniards would chase them. For example, during an expedition to Ilocos, they burned 4,000 houses and killed over 500 people. Imagine an entire town wiped out for just not meeting tribute demands. Next is the long-term effect. Significant devastation, recovery estimated to take years. This destruction left villages desolate. For example, a town that was thriving with rice fields and livestock could take decades to recover from such devastation. Now let us talk about the tribute and taxation practices. First is the tribute collection. So men 20 to 60 years old and women 25 to 60 years old required to pay. The only exemption there is those who are sick, those with failed crops, and colonial employees. Next is the grace period of 10 years during the early Spanish occupation. So tributes were likely today's taxation. Every male aged 20 to 60 and every female aged 25 to 60 had to pay. For example, a farmer aged 30 had to pay, but if his crops failed, he might be exempted. Next is the new income schemes. Manila-Acapulco galleon trade in 1565 to 1815, key income source for Spain, brought silver from Nueva Castilla and salt from China. So picture a ship arriving in Manila carrying a silver from Mexico. It will exchange a silver for silk from China, creating an income for the Spaniards. Next is a pulley servicio. This was forced labor. Imagine a 25-year-old man who had to work on a Spanish road project for 40 days. If he wanted to skip this, he could pay a fala fee worth 1.5 rios, which is like paying a fine today. Next is bandala system. natives were forced to sell their crops to the government at a low price. Imagine a farmer being told to sell his rice for a half and its market value. Next is the taxation evolution. Cedula system in 1884, tax for natives aged 18 to 60, 8 reales, later 15 reales. This was fixed of 8 reals for those aged 18 to 60. For example, a young laborer had to save parts of his earnings to pay his tax, which later increased in 15 reals. Next is replaced by residence certificate during American period. During the American period, the cedula tax was replaced by the residence certificate, a document similar to the modern ID tax. So in conclusion, this system caused immense suffering for the natives, often leaving them impoverished or displaced. By understanding these examples, we see how these practices shape the Filipino experiences under the Spanish rule. So that's all for my part, and I hope you learned something. And now I'll give the floor to the next reporter.
Good day everyone, I'm Wency L, Abatayo, one of the reporters of Group 3, and we're going to talk all about base of Philippine taxation system. The taxation policy in the Philippines is primarily based on the Constitution, 3 key Republic Acts. The first one is Philippine Constitution. Article 4, Section 28 mandates that taxation must be uniform, equitable, and progressive. Uniform means that taxes must be applied equally to all individuals or entities within similar situations. For example, if 2 individuals have the same income level, they should be taxed similarly. Another example of uniformity in taxation is if 2 businesses, Business A and Business B, both operate in the same industry and generate the same amount of revenue, they should be subject to the same tax rate. For instance, if both businesses earn 1 million a year and the tax rate for the level of income is 20%, both businesses should pay 200,000 in taxes. This ensures that tax rules are applied equally to business in similar situations. And equitable ensures that the tax burden is fair and just, meaning that those who can afford to pay more taxes due to having higher income or wealth should contribute more. For instance, imagine 2 individuals. Vlogger A earns 10 million a year from YouTube, while Vlogger B earns 200 a year. In an equitable tax system, Vlogger A who earns significantly more should pay a higher amount in taxes compared to Vlogger B who earn less. The tax system ensures that those who have higher earnings contribute more to support public services, while those with lower earnings like Vlogger B are not overburdened with taxes. It also requires the government to create a progressive tax system, meaning that people who earn more money should pay a higher percentage of their income in taxes. The system aims to make the tax burden fairer by ensuring that those with higher incomes contribute more to public services, while those with lower incomes are taxed less. So that ends for my report. I will now pass the floor to Ms. Jamyle.
Good day, I am Jamyle Inot, and I am going to tackle about the second and third taxation laws of the Philippines. So what are those, Mandiay? So we have the second, the National Internal Revenue Code, which is enacted as Republic Act 8424 or the Tax Reform Act of 1997. And we also have the recent amendment of this act, which is the Republic Act 8494 or the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion Act. Now, what are these? What does this mean, Mandiay? So, National Internal Revenue Code or Republic Act 8424, or also called the Tax Reform Act of 1997, is a law ni siya, which outlines the rules for collecting the tax at the national level. So, mga taxes na i-collect and national aspect. And we have the recent amendment of this law, which is called Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion Act, or also known as TRAIN, under Republic Act 8494. So from being Republic Act 8424, now it became Republic Act 8494. That's the second. Now the third one is the Republic Act 7160 or the Local Government Code, which is the major sources of revenues. When we say revenues, the taxes collected from business or the prices nga giad sa beverages or cigarettes or any other things, and also properties like mga yuta nga lang gina collect by virtue of this act. And kanang same thing rin siya sa the National Internal Revenue Code. However, what I mean by the same thing is that it's also rules for collecting taxes. However, in locality, it's on local aspect, local level. Now, what are they gonna do for the taxes collected by? So they're gonna use it for public services. So ang LGU, gamitin nila for public services like collection of garbage, collection sa garbage, health centers, improvements sa hospitals so that they can help and aid more people nga naisakit or that needed aids good sa hospitals. And of course, local roads. Common kaining ayuhon na mga karsada. Mag-implement nila unahon. And to summarize this, Republic Act A424 focuses on national taxes, while Republic Act 7160 empower local governments to generate revenue through local taxes. So, both are crucial for funding public services. So, public services sa national aspect is like kami, mga scholar ng bayan. We kana mga gipambayad na tax sa mga workers, mga Filipino citizens, which helps fund the foundation of the state university nga makakuha silang mga estudyante nga like me, a scholar ng bayan. So wala mi gibayar nga tuition because of the taxes nga ginagamit sa government to aid us, to aid students like me. Now, in local aspect is katong mga taxes na gina-collect nila sa local area nila so that they can use the taxes for improvement of their locality. Now, I'm going to pass the floor to Dhyxee Lauta, and Dhyxee, the floor is yours.
Now, let's move on to the differences on how residents and non-residents' incomes are taxed in the Philippines. My name is Dhyxee Lauta, and I'll be discussing that topic to you today. Residents are taxed 32% of all their net income derived within and without of the Philippines, while non-residents, like foreigners, are only taxed on the sources derived from the Philippines and not to their country.
Hello and welcome everyone. I am Vishnu Marcuelo, who will be discussing our topic for today, which is Republic Act 1096-3, or the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion, or is well known by Train Law. The Train Law is the first package of the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program, CTRP, which aims to create a simpler, fairer, and more efficient tax system under the administration of President Rodrigo Duterte. President Rodrigo Duterte signed this law at December 19, 2017, which is the first package of CTRP, in which it's aimed to create a simpler, fairer, and an efficient tax system. The law aims to correct deficiencies in the Philippine tax system and create a tax structure where the rich contribute more and the poor benefit from government programs and services. This means that President Rodrigo Duterte signed this law where its goal is that in our Philippine tax system, where there is no corruption, no deficiencies can be seen. This will also mean that the tax structure where the rich contribute more, or the working class, and the poor benefit from government programs and services like us who are not actually working. An example of this correlates our situation as learners. We were given the privilege to study and learn here at CTU main campus, in which the government provided us. But where did the government have the funds to provide us such opportunities? Yes, it's from the rich or the working class in our system. They paid more tax, more money
for us poor or non-working class can also get a benefit from the government services and programs. That will be all from my part. Now I'll be passing the floor to Miss Kershia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vishnu. Good day, everyone. This is Jamyle Soreso. So to continue, the train law aims to help lower the percentage of people living in poverty from 22% to 14% by the year 2014. This means that out of every 100 people, fewer will struggle to meet their basic needs like food, shelter, and healthcare. By achieving this, the law plans to lift around 6 million Filipinos out of poverty, allowing them to access better livelihoods and improve their quality of life. For example, initiatives could include job training programs, access to affordable healthcare, or improve public services. Furthermore, moving from a low middle income to an upper middle income status means that the overall economic strength and living standards of the country will be enhanced, which could result in a more prosperous society overall. Next, in the second bullet, the law aims for steady and long-lasting growth in the economy by ensuring that investments of 7 to 10% of the country's resources are directed to important areas such as infrastructure or technology development. This kind of thoughtful investment can lead to job creation and improved services. The law also plans to introduce changes in economic policies to encourage more business to compete fairly, which can lead to better products and services for consumers. Lastly, it focuses on improving how taxes and customs duties are collected to ensure the government has enough funds to support social programs and development projects. For instance, better customs administration could mean faster processing for imported goods, thus reducing costs and making products more affordable for the public. That's all for my part. I will now pass the floor to Miss Princess Nicole Mainit.
Thank you, Kershia. So now let us begin to my part. The law includes several tax changes, such as lowering personal income taxes, or PIT, simplifying estate and donors taxes, expanding the VAT base, and increasing excise taxes on petroleum, automobiles, and sweetened beverage. So the government is changing some tax rules. They're making a personal income taxes lower, simplifying taxes on inheritance and gifts, broadening what's subject to sales tax or VAT, and rising taxes on things like gas, cars, and sugary drinks. Example, imagine a family in Manila. They're going to pay less income tax, which will help them keep more of their hard-earned money. The new law also makes it easier to inherit property from family members. However, they'll pay more for gasolines, cars, and sugary drinks. These changes are meant to help the economy, but they will affect people's spending habits. The next is train. Train is designed to promote inclusive economic and political institutions, reduce extreme poverty, and help the Philippines achieve high-income country status. So the train is a plan to improve the Philippine economy. It aims to make things fairer for everyone, reduce poverty, and help the Philippines become a wealthy country. For example, imagine a family living in a rural area. Train aims to help them by creating more job opportunities and making sure everyone has access to good healthcare and education. This will help them escape poverty and contribute to the country's overall success, eventually making the Philippines a wealthier nation.
So good day everyone. Before I will start my discussion, I would like to introduce my name first. So hi, I am Mary Charbel Bermoy, the presenter of Group 3. The Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion Train Law, also known as Republic Act 1096-3, introduced significant changes to the Philippines tax system, impacting various aspects of individual and corporate taxation. This document will delve into three salient features of the train law, focusing on their implications for individual taxpayers. First, we have the personal income tax exemption. So when we say personal tax exemption, the train law simplified the personal income tax exemption system by eliminating the personal exemptions of 50,000 pesos and additional exemption of 25,000 pesos per dependent that were previously available under the old tax system individuals. So this change resulted in a more straightforward exemption based on the gross income individuals with a gross income of 250,000 pesos or less are automatically exempted from paying income tax regardless of their dependents. So furthermore, the train law also removed the deduction for health and hospitalization insurance premiums previously allowed up to 2,400 per year. So this change effectively increased the taxable income of individuals who previously claimed this deduction. Now let's proceed to taxation of lotto winning and PCSO prizes. So prior to the train law, lotto winnings and PCSO prizes were tax exempt. However, the train law imposed a 20% final withholding tax on these winnings if the amount exceeds 10,000 pesos. So this new tax provision aims to increase government revenue from these sources. So tax exemption for long-term time deposits. So the train law maintained the tax exemption from time deposits with a duration of 5 years and 1 day. So this exemption encourages long-term savings and investments, contributing to financial stability. So in conclusion, this train law introduced significant changes in the Philippines tax system. So aiming to simplify tax compliances, generates more revenue, and promote economic growth. So the tax changes discussed in this document highlight the law's impact on individual taxpayers, particularly in terms of personal incomes. Particularly income tax exemptions. So taxation of lotto winnings and tax exemption for long-term time deposits. While these changes have generated both positive and negative responses, so their long-term effects of the Philippines economy remain to be seen.
So hello everyone, number 3. Once again, I am Rivera Jecyl, and now I'm going to discuss about the tax on interest income of foreign currency deposit in the Philippine banks and increased from 7.5% to 15% because it introduced to us the significant changes to the Philippine tax system, including an increase in the tax rate on interest income from foreign currency deposit in the Philippine banks. Before the train law apply, the tax rate on the interest income from foreign currency deposit was 7.5. After the train law apply, it was increased to 15%. The implication of the increase is in the tax rate has several implications for the individual and businesses because it can reduce the investment returns. For the investors who hold a foreign currency deposit in the Philippine banks will experience a lower net return on their investments. This also encourage the foreign investment and the capital inflows into the Philippines, while the investors may seek alternative investment option with a lower tax rate or the tax exemption, such as investing in foreign markets or the other financial instruments. So take note that the tax laws and regulation can change over time. So it's crucial to stay updated on the latest develops to make informed financial decisions. So now let's proceed to number 5. Tax on stocks transaction. The sale of stocks are not traded in the Philippine Stock Exchange or the PSE is increased to 15% from 5 to 10%, while the sale of stocks are traded in the Philippine Stock Exchange or the PSE is taxed at 0.6% of the gross trade amount from 0.5%. Why do you think it happened? Do you have an idea? Do you think I have an idea? Of course I am. I get you. The trade laws changes to stock transaction taxes aim to promote the PSE because they believe that the higher tax on non-PSE traded stocks encourage the investor to trade on the regulated PSE, which provide a greater transparency and investor protection. However, the changes also may discourage the informal trading. Why? Because while they are increasing the tax rate on the non-PSE traded stocks, it can encourage the informal transaction and may have pushed some investor to do the underground market or the illegal marketing. So take note, it's essential to consult with a financial advisor or tax professional for specific guidance on tax, stock transaction, and tax implication. Tax laws and regulation can be complex, and seeking professional advice is crucial to ensure compliance. So now let's have the number 6. The trade law that increase the documentary stamp tax or the DST on a certain documents, because the previous DST rate was leveled at a rate of 1.5 per 1,000 pesos of the value of the document. This means that every 1,000 pesos, the value of the document, a DST of 1.50 was paid. Now, the new DST rates under the trade law introduced the new rates of different categories of documents with a specific increases for a certain transaction. Like for example, contracts for the sale of the real property. The DST rate increased to 0.75% of the total consideration of the value of the property, whichever is higher. Another example, the loan and the other transaction. The DST rate increased to 0.6% of the amount of the loan or the credit transaction, while the other documents, the DST rate for the documents remain at 1.50 per 1,000 pesos. The reason for the increased DST is not about the simply doubling, but rather a combination of a factor. Why? Because the government needed to increase to revenue to fund various infrastructure projects and social programs. By raising the DST rates on a certain documents was seen as a way to achieve this. While doing that, it also aligned the DST rates with the market values because the previous DST rate of 1.50 per 1,000 pesos was outdated and didn't reflect the current market values of the real estate and loan. And the new rates based on the percentage of transaction values aim to align the DST with the current market condition. So always remember that it's crucial to understand the trade law, but it did not simply double the DST, but it has introduced the new rates for specific types of documents, and the actual increase varies depending on the transaction value.
Hello everyone, this is Dan Gabriel speaking. Now let's proceed to the 7th salient features of the train law. In the Philippines, the donor's tax has been updated to a flat 6%, no matter if the donor and the recipient are related or not. Before this, the tax rate was higher for donations to strangers, 30%, and lower for donations to relatives, 2% to 15%. Now, any donation or gift worth less than 250,000 pesos is not taxed at all. If the donation exceeds 250,000 pesos, only the amount above is taxed at 6%. This change makes the tax system simpler by applying the same rate for all donations above 250,000 pesos, regardless of the relationship between the donor and the donee. Okay, let's have an example. For example, donation below 250,000 pesos. If a person donates 200,000 pesos to a relative stranger, no tax will be applied because the donation is below the 250,000 pesos exception limit. Another example, donation above 250,000 pesos. If a person donates 500,000 pesos to a relative, only the amount over 250,000 pesos will be taxed. The tax will be 6% of 250,000 pesos, which equals to 15,000 pesos. For the 8th salient features of the train law, under the current estate tax laws in the Philippines, estates valued at 5 million pesos or less are tax exempt. For estates over 5 million pesos, the tax is a flat 6% on the amount above 5 million pesos. Family homes worth 10 million pesos or less are also exempt from tax, unlike before when only family homes worth 1 million pesos were exempt. Now for the 9th salient features of the train law. In the Philippines, all cosmetic surgeries, aesthetic procedures, and body enhancements meant to improve or alter a person's physical appearance are subject to a 5% tax. This includes Botox, body contouring, and facelifts. Example, if someone undergoes a cosmetic procedure costing 50,000 pesos, the 5% tax would be 2,500 pesos, bringing the total cost to 52,500 pesos. And number 10, starting from 2018, the deadline for filing the BIR Form 1701Q, the Quarterly Income Tax Return or ITR, for the first quarter has been moved from April 15 to May 15. This change gives taxpayers an additional month to file their tax returns for the first quarter of each year. For example, if a self-employed individual earned income in the first quarter of 2024, they would typically file their BIR Form 1701Q by April 15. However, due to the change, they now have until May 15, 2024 to submit their quarterly tax return without facing penalties.
So that would be all, everyone. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something from our discussion. Thank you.